Welcome back to TrueNAS Tech Talk. Today, we'll be doing something a little different and talking about a much anticipated feature that's going to be landing in TrueNAS 2604 in the spring. It's TrueNAS web-based file sharing. Kris has a video demo for us today, and the early release of this software is available right now in the nightly images for you developers to play with, gather some bug reports, and submit your early feedback. Stick around for your early Christmas gift as we take the wrappings off this upcoming feature today. Well, Kris, one of the features that's been a long time ask within TrueNAS has been about it getting the ability to access files and your data and your shares via a web browser. A lot of folks today are using, SMB or NFS. There were, I think a couple of people had set up WebDAV, which is, a little bit unfortunate. We're not a big fan of that protocol. And people were, trying to set up things like SyncThing. But there was never really an easy way to just point your web browser at TrueNAS and be able to sort of browse the contents of a shared folder. I know this is something you've been trying to work on this as well in the background, Kris.
Yeah. It's like you said, back to the WebDAV thing, that is very unfortunate. It's just one of those protocols. It was a good idea at the time. It just never really took off in terms of people leveraging it as widely as it maybe could have been. It's just not that popular. And then you see the occasional performant. Yeah, or that performant. And you see the occasional, user out there with SSHFS, or you guys have come up with some interesting exotic solutions to try and do these kind of things. But at the end of the day, what a lot of folks really have just wanted is a more native, polished, web-driven workflow. I mean, that's just how modern IT and admins and us users are used to accessing files in the modern connected world. You fire up a web browser, you point it at a site, and you're uploading, you're downloading, you're manipulating data. I mean, we all do that. Everyone's doing that around the world. So earlier in 2025, though, we internally embarked on an effort to go ahead and bring that kind of functionality exactly into TrueNAS. Now, the goals are a little different here, Kris, so we should probably set up some context just so folks understand what we mean by kind of having a web-based file manager, file browser.
Exactly. This isn't Midnight Commander. It's not something like that you open within the TrueNAS web UI where you're the admin and you get to throw your files around in that kind of sense. It's something a little bit more like user-facing and user-friendly.
Yeah, a little more refined and more suitable for the TrueNAS mission, which is a multi-user storage system, the enterprise market, all that. There's no reason to really treat web-based file services any differently. So, for example, we have SMB and NFS, and those are all multi-user, multi-clients. They have access and rights and permissions, and you share out specific data sets and all that good stuff. So we took a look at what web sharing should be and decided it should follow the same mold here. We don't need to reinvent the wheel or do something, again, that's so narrowly focused that it's only usable by the administrator. And meanwhile, your clients are like, hey, why can't I upload a file over the web protocol? Are left out in the cold. We didn't want that either because there's a lot of value for kind of both use cases. So enter the web sharing. This is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be demoing it for the first time and showing folks some of its capabilities. Now, by the time you watch this isn't necessarily still mysterious. It's not all behind the curtain. This has landed in the TrueNAS nightlies of what's going to become the Half Moon release for this upcoming spring. The betas for that will be starting in early Q1. But so people can start playing with this now. So feel free to go kick the tires. We would love feedback. It's still in the very early days. So let's just preface that. Early days, early code. This is its first real go. So we expect there will be some things we have to polish and fix as time goes on. But, all that in mind, it's already pretty darn usable and functional. And we're pretty happy to get to show off what we've been able to come up with over the course of this year.
Absolutely. So why don't you take us through a little bit of it and give us a demo video here, Kris.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and fire it up. Okay, Kris, so I think the first place to start is probably just at the beginning, which is how do I enable this darn thing and what is it going to look like on the TrueNAS side to go get it set up? So again, if you're a TrueNAS experienced user, there's not going to be any real magic or new thing to learn here. It pretty much follows the same conventions you have for your SMB and NFS shares. But on the TrueNAS sharing page, you're going to see a new section called WebShare, and its current status, running or not, all that good stuff. You'll have a few configuration options, which we'll touch on here real quick. There's going to be an option for enabling TrueSearch that allows you to enable file indexing of the data sets. which that's going to be important. And we'll discuss that here in a little bit later. We'll demo that, being able to search for files. And then Passkey support. You'll have some options to require it, enable it, or disable it. And again, we'll touch on that a little later in the demo, but some good features here to go ahead and turn on. And then lastly, you're able to go add new shares. And again, it follows the same convention. You're just going to go ahead and point it at a data set, and away you go. There's not much else to it. Now, setting up the credentials, that's interesting. This is actually pretty nice. So if we go to credentials and users, you'll take a look here. We'll go ahead and select my user. You'll see right here, there's this fancy little has WebShare access. Yes, it truly is that easy. So the way you hand out access is by editing your users and just going and ticking the box that says, yep, this user is allowed to log into the WebShare. That's it. Again, if this takes you more than 3 to 4 minutes to set up, you're probably doing something wrong, and it was designed to be that way.
Wow, that's pretty convenient. Just it's a checkbox.
Well, again, we're trying to make things easier for people. It shouldn't require, a degree or having to read a long manual page just to go turn on a service and get to using it. It should be as simple as it's set up. I have credentials. Let me go. So that's what we did here. And again, it'll evolve as time goes on and new features and bells and whistles get added. But for now, it should be pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Okay. Well, with that, let's maybe go ahead and dive right into the web sharing. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and get logged in here. I will go ahead and log in with my very creative username. Most of you can probably figure out what that is. Great, I'm in. I see my web share is now accessible. So in this case, I've shared out Moreville share. Again, demo purposes. I'm not super creative with the naming, but you get what you get here. Getting into here, you can see I am now browsing the file system. I can see I have directories, I have files. They're represented by different types of icons to indicate what kind of file they are. Pretty standard stuff. I don't think anybody's going to be too shocked by this, Chris, but that's what you just want. You should just make sense and be intuitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see we've got some thumbnails for the images there as well.
Oh, yeah, we do thumbnails as well, and those are all generated server side. That's an important piece because you don't want to have to stream the full file down to your web browser just to render a real small kilobyte thumbnail type size. So server side, that's handled, which is very nice. A little different than, say, SMB or NFS, where that is all done client side, and you're having to send the whole file, and then you're having to generate a thumbnail, and then usually store it back on the server in some kind of thumbnail cache location, which can get out of date or inconsistent. You have to kind of deal with that whole mess. So very convenient in the sense of if you just have a bunch of images and need to quickly log in, see a bunch of thumbnails and browse them, they generate very quickly on the fly on the server side. Okay, now with that, let's get into some of the basic functionality we wanted to demo today. So obviously the easy ones, okay, you want to create directories. No big deal there. This is all very straightforward. We can create a new directory. We'll create one called videos. Great. You can see the directory created. One small thing to note, you notice there's two different types of folder icons here. I bet you
I was going to ask you, what's that about?
Yeah, it just means these have files in them and these are empty.
Oh, they're
empty.
empty.
It's just an easy way. Again, when we were designing this, we were trying to think of what we would want to see as we're using it because we are users. And it's like, it is really convenient. Sometimes you get dropped into a directory and it might have, hundreds of subdirectories, right? At a glance, being able to look and see which ones are empty versus have something I should dive into and look is very helpful, especially if I'm cleaning up. So in this case, what I've done is I've created a videos directory. Wonderful. Okay. What else do we want to do here that's potentially interesting, Chris? How about we put some files in there?
Why don't you just move those files in there?
Yeah, so drag and drop does work. So we're going to go ahead and drag and drop. And you look, oh, the icon changed. Isn't that pretty and nice? Now we have content in there. But you can do the same thing. We can go and drag and drop. You can do things like multi-select as well. There's all kinds of good options here. Okay. With that, we'll dive in. We see our videos here have shown up.
All right. Can you play one from the browser here, Chris?
Can I play one? So you'll notice here, if you hover over the icon, there is this little preview that shows up. And yes, I can play a video. Again, it's demo video, so it's not the most creative content, but it's free and public domain. Enjoy.
Exactly.
But yeah, as you can see, the video's playing.
It's not Big Buck Bunny again.
Right. And then you can even scroll back and forth and jump between things in a directory too. So you have this whole concept of I'd like to swipe. This is mobile enabled as well. And so you can kind of navigate back and forth between your content. So if you have a directory full of images, videos, other media content, you can do that, which is pretty darn convenient. And then in the media viewer here, you'll have all the typical options. Now I'd like to download the file to my local desktop, some information about the file, some metadata as well, which is helpful. Or you can go ahead and close the previews. Okay, Chris, while we're on the topic of media browsing, there's a few more things we probably want to show off and talk about with this, because there's some real neat functionality here that's going to be useful for a lot of folks. So let's take a look at another photo, for example. So, well, let's start with an animated GIF. Yes, those are there. They play. All good stuff. You can see just some basic information.
Memes are pretty crucial. The memes
That's right.
work. That's
for
good.
your meme collection, we're all set. Now, how about this? I did take a photo of a recent Krampus parade they did here in Knoxville just recently. I was at. Apologies, it's kind of not a great photo. It was very dark where I took it. But as you can see, the photos here, all the metadata is available up top. And oh, well, shoot, what is that? I can even click and yeah, sure, I can get GPS coordinates and kind of see where it was taken in Knoxville. Very cool, very handy. But what else, Chris? What other types of files might people like to preview? Oh.
What about just a document, right?
Yeah, how about like a text file or something, right? I have some source code here from something I was just playing around with. Nothing too exciting, but sure enough, you can click preview on that and it renders in your browser. Very nice. And then
I see this little blue pencil icon. Are we going to be able to edit our documents right in here?
Yes, I can edit it. What do you know? I can go and I can edit the file. I can take those comments out and let's go ahead and hit save. And there you go. The file is saved. It's been uploaded back to the server. Life is good. That's pretty handy and helpful. So again, that's not the same as editing, say, a full Word document or something. It's not going to do necessarily that in the browser, but a lot of times we find that we'll have simple text files, config files, markdown files, other things that you could just use a basic text editor for. This works perfectly well for that. And
it's not meant to replace it's not meant to replace your Open Office or Collabora instance.
That's a whole different ball of wax to do and a whole set of different challenges and all that. But again, we wanted to try and hit the more basic use case, which is for a file browser, just some basic editing and command and control capabilities are really what we're after here. And I think it really does fit the bill nicely for that.
Yeah. Even the ability to quickly grab a snippet of a log file through a web browser. You can say, hey, I want to see this and quickly throw it back, or I need to make a quick change.
Absolutely.
I can see our more adventurous users already saying, well, if I web share out, a Docker container config file or some YAML, I can edit it and just reload the file. I don't have to go into somewhere else to do it.
Absolutely. You don't have to dive into SSH or go drop into a shell to do it. You could potentially point this at, a host mount, for example, where you have content shared between containers and, logs are in there. Like you said, config files might be in there. A lot of times there's just a lot of basic text things you need to get into. So this fits the bill quite nicely for that.
A little easier to use than Vi.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Everybody should learn how to use VI. It's easy. It's fine. Come on. I learned it 20 years ago. You could do it too.
All right.
Okay, Chris, so let's get into some other basic file operations here. I think for any kind of file manager, some of the most basic stuff is, can I upload and download? Of course, that's just, day one kind of things we have to be able to do. So we'll just demo it real quick here. I've got a small handful of some photos to upload. And you can see, dang, that was pretty dang fast. Again, I will mention this is actually a remote system. This is running back at my house right now. This is one of my test systems, and I'm doing it over the internet here, over Tailscale, and it's quite snappy, which is pretty cool to see. But as you can see, I uploaded the photos. The thumbnails got previewed pretty much immediately, and there they be. Not much to it. It's pretty straightforward. Again, you shouldn't have to think about it too hard.
But yes, Chris, you've put these in the root directory. You didn't put them in your pictures directory. How can you get them there?
Can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. Well, here, I think I have some stuff in my pictures directly because I've uploaded these already. But yeah, you can multi-select. Before I go and drag and drop them here, though, you have some different bulk actions you can do here, like copy, move, download the whole thing as a zip archive. That's kind of cool. But you can also do things like this and just, there they all go. Yeah,
a little smooth animation works, too for that.
Drag and drop works. You can come back here and you can do the same thing, multi-select, and say you want to move them back. You see the back button highlights there?
Yeah.
You can drag them back to the parent directory. Oh, that's kind of handy, and oh, look, the temp folder's empty again, so the icon changed. So again, little convenience functionality never hurts, but same thing, say you want to download, you can come here, you have this nice handy menu here. We'll get into some of these here in a moment, but you have the download option as well, which will just do a standard web browser download, and it'll go to your downloads folder. Again, piece of cake. And then, of course, your single copies and renames and all that good stuff. So I can say, let's see here. Flowers in my, and yes, I use underscores because that's just how I roll.
Well, we've had lots of fun with manipulating images and things, but I also see you've got a file there called images, and it's a zip file. So surely we're not going to have to download that and extract it and then upload those all back, right, Chris? We have a pretty powerful system on the other end of it. Surely we must be able to do something with that zip file in place.
That would be pretty inconvenient, right? And that is an annoying thing. Again, with some of the other protocols, you are expected to download it all to the local client, extract, find that one file you want or that one piece of information, and then put that back on the server. That could be a pain in the rear, right? Who wants all that extra network traffic? So sure enough, we went ahead and implemented that as well. You'll see in this case, it detects that it's an archive file, and you end up with an extract option. In this case, it's a zip file I created on a Mac. So you can see all of Mac's little thumbnails embedded here. But yeah, I can go ahead and extract that. Away we go. My images just came back.
Well, those images look a little bit
painless.
They look awfully familiar too.
Yeah, it's the ones I'm just messing around with here. Now, there are some limitations. If you have a massive archive, I mean, thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of files, the preview won't show all the files inside the archive because that may take a heck of a long time to fetch from the server. So it's just going to say, hey, at some point, it's too big. We're only going to show you the first so many, or we can't load them because it's just too large of an archive. We're not going to blow it up on the server side. So you'll have to do more of a blind extraction in that case. But again, that's a reasonable trade-off, I think. Yeah. For reasonably sized archives, though, you'll get a nice listing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I imagine if you're using it to, untar some 80,000 small file like code tree, you're probably going to hit some limitations with what you can display in line there. But it looks like this is a pretty good way to just handle, hey, I've downloaded a zip file, whether it's, a firmware or a BIOS update for something. I need to extract it to get to this file so I can flash it to, a drive or an HB8. Just do that online and then you'll have immediate access to the file.
So one of the things we were thinking as we were designing this, Chris, was just finding things where people were commonly having to drop to the SSH prompt or to open the web shell prompt to go do, which are things, again, like looking at a log file, extracting an archive file. I need to get that one file out. Okay, well, those are things we're going to, have either already added to the WebShare or we'll continue to add and enhance as time goes on. We're just trying to find ways to make it convenient so you don't have to go drop to a command line.
Exactly. Or you don't have to, memorize what the particular tar flags are that you need to XZVF or whatever to extract all of your files in verbose
people
mode.
Don't know all those flags? It's common knowledge, Chris. Come on.
Yeah. I can push that out of my brain to make room for something else at this point, I think.
Okay, Chris, so let's get into some other functionality here. Search. That's kind of a big deal these days. What if you have lots of files and you don't know where to find it? Where did I put that? Or where did the client put it? Because maybe you're not the one who even uploaded it, right?
Exactly.
So we mentioned at the beginning, we were showing the TrueNAS setup options. We had this thing you could tick called TrueSearch support, which basically does the indexing on the server side, right?
Yeah, well, we talked about that in a previous episode, and I'll make sure I link it over here so that you can see where Chris talked about TrueSearch previously.
Yeah, and how that ties into SMB for Spotlight support and all that good stuff. Same backend, just two different ways of accessing it on the front end side. But as you can see, we have a search bar up here, so I can come in here and type, name of a file like Rocket, and hey, it found it instantly. Wonderful. Very simple, very straightforward. You can do all kinds of different searches. So we can do image. Let's do that. And here's something interesting I want to just take a moment and pause on, Chris. Do you notice anything interesting here?
That's not named image.
No, it is not.
Web UI master. So it's searching inside your zip files.
We're searching inside the zip files. That's one of the things the indexer did, which again, we referenced that in the previous episode if you want to get into the technical details. But the indexing agent is looking for more than just file names and paths. I mean, that's useful in and of itself, but sometimes you need to search by metadata. You need to search by what's inside a zip file because you archived it and now you're looking for that file that's inside another file. So the indexer gives you lots of options for that now, which is pretty handy.
Yeah. And since it is a common backend DB, I would assume that anything that you upload over SMB gets that same indexing here, and you'll be able to find it quickly. Vice versa,
Correct.
you upload something in the web UI, it's still a common backend in TrueSearch. It should be immediately available to Spotlight.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're both talking to the same system, the same index database. And really, it's just monitoring the file system at the end of the day. So even if you upload a file not via either of these mechanisms, you do it over NFS or over SSH or anything manually, it'll still get indexed at the end of the day. Okay,
Excellent.
Related to indexing, though, another common thing people do with indexing here is they want to go and tag things. Let's just show that for a second here. So you can go into files, you can go into properties, and you can see I've already added a tag here on this one called Find Me, which is kind of interesting, but you can go and add other ones like, search for me, whatever, give it some tag name, or, let's see, Pingu. Oh, no, we already have that in the file name. We won't do that one here, but you get the point. We can go ahead and do artificial tags, and you can kind of type them, give them any name you want, and then you can go search for that here. So search for, up comes the rocket Pingu. As you can see, I tagged it, I applied that tag, and that's now instantly available in the index. So you can go back and reference and find your files based on tags that you've applied. Again, very helpful.
All right, so this web browser looks pretty fantastic as far as the different things we can do with it. Obviously, because we're running on TrueNAS, we get all the benefits of running on top of ZFS, like our snapshotting and our easy way to sort of revert back to a file that's in a previous version of the snapshot, right? So how do we get into this? I know on, Windows, if you got shadow copy, you can interface with that and right-click a file and pull up previous versions. Can we do something like that here, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the benefits of us going and building one is we know what the underlying file system is. We know what the capabilities of ZFS are. So it makes sense that we'd want to expose some of those functionalities. So sure enough, we have done that. So any file or directory for that matter, you can go and click properties, and you'll notice here, I have previous versions. I do have a snapshot task running. We took a snapshot last night, as you can see, and I can go download the previous version of that file straight here from the properties menu. We have another way to also browse the snapshots, which we'll jump back to here in just a moment. But while we're here, let's take a moment and explore some other features in this properties and file details section, which is pretty powerful. So you can see you got some of your basic information about the file. You can see what type it is. Permissions. Oh, well, that's kind of interesting. There's even a nice little POSIX permission editor here. So again, you can see where this would come in helpful. If you've had to drop to the shell and run a chmod before, I can come in and do things like this, and it kind of adjusts all the sliders in real time. So you can edit it in the octal mode, which I'm familiar with. But if that's not your bag, I can come here and I can do the same thing. And you'll see it's changing the code up top. And it gives you even the preview as well, what that would look like from your LSAL, which is pretty handy. When we were designing this, we wanted it to kind of show all the common ways people are used to dealing with POSIX permissions. And I think that hits them all.
Yeah, that's got them all unified. POSIX is one of those kind of fun things where it's either you're really familiar with the permissions and they make sense to you, or you could probably use the additional explanations.
Absolutely. So try to make it as straightforward as possible.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, what if you're more of an NFS ACLs type person? You're running in Windows World and all that. Well, that's also supported. As you can see here, I have my access control list is exposed. You can see information about the owner and what kind of presets are available to it, all that good stuff. But you can even click the button here and go change it on the fly, which is kind of nice. And again, this works for directories. It works for files. You can come in here and you can say, I'd like to go add a new user. You can search. If you have other usernames here, they will show up. As you type, it'll fill them out, autocomplete. Add groups. You can add specials, like the everyone section. Great. You say, I want to give everyone full control. You can hit apply and away we go. Maybe not what you want to set, but, set your own permissions accordingly.
Yeah, I would not recommend that as the, base level permission is everyone full control. Probably not.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do here.
Yeah.
But for demo,
do that on your memes folder if you want. Don't do that on your personal photos.
Absolutely. And as we promised, though, Chris, we talked about snapshot support. So there's one other little party trick we have here with relation to snapshots. We have this little browse previous versions button. So say you're just in a directory. Well, you can hit that and you see I have my previous snapshot here. Oh, wow. What is this? This is pretty.
Looks like Christmas.
Uh-huh. So what we have here is we're browsing the snapshot that was taken last night before we started moving some files around today. And you get kind of this color-coded and with little icons that indicate what's changed. So I can see not only I have some files here that are in green, the files are identical. That's just telling me the current state of the file is the same as what's in the snapshot. I have other ones that show me, hey, this file has been removed in the current view. And you can come over here, you can click restore to bring that file back to the live data set. Pretty stinking cool. And then you have others, like the file's still here, but it's been changed since the snapshot was taken. Again, you have the restore options, all that good stuff. Again, I think that's pretty powerful, and it's a great way to visualize ZFS snapshots in a little bit different way, hopefully that's useful for folks when you need to go back and hunt through time and try and find that file you lost or deleted or changed inadvertently.
Yeah, and find out when you deleted or changed it as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then it looks like a quick button to just say, go back to the current live state of the data set. And there you are.
Mm-hmm. There we are.
Oh, that's pretty useful. Well, I guess, what are some other neat things we can do here, Chris, with all of our permissions? Obviously, let's say we've granted some additional people permission to it. How do we get, the actual web sharing component of this web share file system?
I'm glad you asked, Chris. So, the whole term web sharing kind of indicates there's going to be some sort of additional sharing capability, which, yes, you will not be disappointed. We did that as well. You'll notice on the 3-dot menu here, we have this little nifty thing called share. Let's dive into that. So sharing a file, there's really two ways to do it. You can just have a link here, you paste it, and that basically will give somebody, if you send the link to them, say on Slack or in your home network, you have your DMs or whatever, somebody's going to get that link fired up in their web browser, and it's going to prompt you to log in to access that file. That assumes the person you're sending to has credentials and can read and access that file. Maybe they're logging in as their own username. It's just a convenient way to share a location and have it open right up to that in the web browser. But there's this secondary mode here, which is very interesting, and it's the ability to go ahead and create a download link for a file, which is anonymous. So I have a file. I don't want to give you access to my system necessarily just to be able to read that file. I can't be bothered to go change permissions or be bothered to grant you credentials or whatever, but I want to give you access to download this file, and I want to set it to how many times you can download it. Optionally, maybe I want a password protected as well, and I'm going to share the password with you offline. But basically, you can go ahead and create a link. And once that link's been created here, you're able to go ahead and share that link with the user, and they will get a download option, which we'll show here in just a moment. All right, Chris, so I went ahead and opened that link up that I just sent to somebody in the household. They threw it in their web browser, and they get presented a page that looks like this. Now, you'll notice the colors even changed. It's very clear you're not logged in. This is not the file manager web share file experience. This is just the download page where you have the option to go ahead and download. We have some information about when the download expires, or, are there limits on how many times you can download it? This one's my favorite here, Chris. This is one of these ones I really wanted because I'm just an uber nerd that way. You can get a download link. So what does that mean? Okay. Say you're going to download it via a tool elsewhere, on another TrueNAS even, and you just want a direct link to be able to fetch that file. You don't have to go do it through the web browser. You can go paste that into curl or something on another TrueNAS, and it's got all the right magic tokens saved and preserved and all that good stuff. So you can send a direct link to the file, download it directly, TrueNAS to TrueNAS. So it's a way of sharing without even having to take the intermediary hop of downloading it to your desktop potentially.
Oh, that's useful. And this works just within your own network. Anything that has access to that TrueNAS system can get it. So remember, folks, just because you click on, create a download link, it's not opening it up to the world. You still have to have access to the TrueNAS system. You just got to get in there. So whether you're using, a WireGuard or a Tailscale or something, you need to have access to that TrueNAS system. It's not the same as just putting it out on the entire internet for everybody to get at.
Absolutely. But for people who do have access, it's a great way to kind of share files or directories. And it works beyond that too. So obviously I'm demoing the single file example here. You could share a directory, and instead of a file, it'll give you a directory listing where people can choose which files to download out of a directory. But the upload use case works as well. So you can go and say, share a directory. I want to create an upload link and set some parameters on, hey, they can upload files of this size or this many times. And they have no listing capabilities, which is great if you say, hey, I have a system here. I want you to send me a file. I don't necessarily want to give you any access to the box, but you're a client. You're sending me some materials I need to work on. Great. They get sent directly to your TrueNAS, and you're done.
Yeah. Kind of like, debug files or log files. If we're trying to help somebody troubleshoot a problem, I'd say, hey, go to this upload folder. You can drop your debug file in here for me to review, and you can't see anybody else who's been sending me a debug file. You can upload me yours. I'll be able to read it. You won't be able to pull down anybody else's.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had people do this with other means. There have been ways to do it with FTP and all that, but this is just a web-driven way of accomplishing the same.
Yeah. Seems a lot easier. I've done those like the the dead drop files for SFTP, where you could go into the upload folder, you can create a new directory, upload your file in there, and then you never see it again. It just uploads in there. So this looks like it's a much easier and more streamlined way to do it, and give somebody a way to deliver the files up to one of us if we need it.
Absolutely. That was the plan, and we're glad to see that was able to land in the product.
All right. Well, that was a great little sort of demonstration of the upcoming WebShare. As Chris said, that's in the 2604 nightly. So if you're a development user, you want to get your feet wet, you want to go poke around in there, feel free to give that a shot. Wouldn't recommend doing it on your primary, most critical storage server at the moment. As he said, it's under active development. So, run it on a second system. Hey, even maybe run it in a VM. We do allow that. And, for a testing system, that's probably a good place to put it.
Absolutely. And we're looking forward to getting this in your hands. Be patient. It's coming in the April release, the spring release. Of course, we'll go through our beta process and our RCE process. So if you're an adventurous early adopter type, you can get your hands on it a little sooner if you want to jump on board with some of those releases. But looking forward to making this available. It's already one of those things we've been using it internally for a while now, Chris. It's hard to imagine not having it. It just feels so natural to kind of have this available on TrueNAS natively. So it's a good thing. Performance
has definitely been a pretty significant driving factor. It's a lot faster. I noticed that as compared to, mapping SMB over the VPN back to the head office.
Yeah.
Performance is much faster. You want to talk about sort of the why of that?
Yeah, when we were doing the initial development and testing, performance was important because we do see people have some pretty wild workloads. There's some of you who do rather naughty things like putting 10 million files in a single directory. I know you shouldn't do that, right? But some folks, that's their workload. It's what they got to do. And, it could take a while to get those directory listings. On a Windows over SMB, that could take a fair amount of time. On a Mac over SMB, it's pretty much impossible. You can't even list a directory in Finder with 1 million files in it. It's just going to take forever. Linux, your results might vary. But, we have an opportunity here with WebShare to do it a little different. It's all in the browser. We kind of control both the client and the backend in that sense, which it's all just doing WebSockets. So it's very fast and lightweight. So one of the things we did is we performance tested it, and we got it to pretty much be on par with Windows SMB performance. When you're locally opening up, say, a directory with 1 million files, we're talking just a few seconds to get the whole listing stream from the server straight to your web browser. But where it really shines is in that remote use case. Because again, during the demo, I mentioned this system's not even local here. I'm doing this over the internet, over a Tailscale session. It's very, very fast. And that was intentional. It's just opening a stream. There's no back and forth chatter of the client. It's just, boom, here's your listing. And I should mention it lazy loads as well. So as that listing is coming in, you're already seeing the files show up. Thumbnails start rendering in the background. We've done all kinds of fancy little tricks like thumbnails. If it has a file it's already seen during the session, it caches that locally in the browser, so it's not having to go and generate thumbnails of every single directory. So as you navigate around, thumbnails load faster after you've seen them once. It's pretty nice. It's convenient to have some of that little functionality.
That is pretty useful. So we've got to talk about some of the requirements for this. Obviously, leveraging TrueSearch and things like the thumbnail generation. Is this probably another case like TrueSearch where you might want to have a solid state drive to talk about, running the app itself off of that for any indexing or metadata, stuff like that?
Yeah. So first of all, we should state up front, it's not an app. It's not deployed as a container or anything. This is built right into the base TrueNAS image. So there's nothing you have to go deploy to turn this on. You just go to the sharing page, click add a share, and away it goes. Again, same as you would with SMB or NFS or some of the other protocols. That said, you brought up an interesting point, Chris, about an SSD. So we had mentioned this in our previous episode with TrueSearch. Those indexes got to live somewhere. And usually you want them to be pretty fast so that when you type that search, you get the instant gratification you want, which is give me my results fast. So yeah, you'll want that index put on some SSD somewhere. That makes sense. So if you have a small SSD pool, that's the place to locate those. But everything else can run off of hard drives, and it'll just be as fast as your storage will allow for upload and download. all that good stuff. Now, we did mention other limitations. Things we should talk about is, what's it going to be to deploy it? What requirements are there? One of the things I'll mention right up front is it does have a TrueNAS Connect dependency, because modern web browsers and all that, we want to do everything over SSL. And you want it to be seamless, and we don't want you to have to muck about with certificates. Otherwise, that whole demo I showed you at the beginning of how easy it is to set up, well, it's really not, because you got to go manually create certs and set up certs, and now your browser doesn't trust your self-signed certs and all that jazz. So the way it'll work is you get established with TrueNAS Connect. You can use the free TrueNAS Connect account, and that will just go ahead and enable this functionality, and your certificates are all just magically handled in the background. You don't even think about it. It's just auto-deployed. You click the button, it opens, you can share the link, and away you go. Very nice, very convenient. And on the free tier, you're allowed one simultaneous user connection at once, which is pretty reasonable for home users. If you're on a paid tier, it jumps up to 5 simultaneous users, and for the later business accounts, it'll go up to a couple hundred users simultaneously, which is quite a bit of simultaneous users on the box, potentially.
Exactly. Since we're talking about TrueNAS Connect and sort of simultaneousness and parallelness, I just wanted to mention right now, we took a lot of your feedback into account from those of you doing the beta testing, and we decided in the foundation, that being the free edition of TrueNAS Connect, we're actually extending that. It used to be having a single system was the limitation there. We've decided, we like people having their backups. We like people having their replications. So you now have 2 systems in the TrueNAS Connect Foundation Edition, as well as in the TrueNAS Connect Plus. You will now have the ability to have up to 3 systems for that included price. So we are, extending that, including it. We want to encourage people to take sort of those proper replication measures. And we said, the best way to do that is to make it easier for you to accomplish it. So we've sort of extended that functionality in TrueNAS Connect. We said, hey, let's make everybody able to use that. Let's open it up.
Yeah, no, that was a good change, and I think fits really well with this new functionality coming. So if you are, again, on the free side, you can have your 2 systems. You can get in, use WebShare on both. Go to the paid tier. You can, of course, get that 3rd system on there as well, which is pretty awesome. Now, one thing I didn't forget about, Chris, we touched on it earlier, was Passkey. I think you guys saw some options for that. I didn't necessarily demo it, but it's another one of those things, and why we have the TrueNAS Connect requirements. We do some neat stuff in the background with the cert generation and all those good things to support some modern authentication techniques. Like a lot of you has your passkey managers today. So if you're on a Mac, you'll have Apple Password Manager, you might have Bitwarden, you might have LastPass. There's a real big push in recent year to move everyone to passkeys and to stop doing manual password logins for things, which makes total sense. So on the TrueNAS side, you'll have the option to either run with passkeys disabled and force people to log in with username and password. You can enable it, which is an option. So it means as people get connected, they will get prompted, do you want to set up a passkey for this account and log in with that going forward? Or you have the option to make it required, which means the first time you log in with your username and password, the system's going to stop you and force you to set up a passkey, verify it works, before you can then proceed into the WebShare. And then from henceforth, you have to log in with the passkey. Now, once you've set up that initial passkey, there's even a nice little section in the UI under account management where you can go and say, I'd like to add new passkeys. You create seats for it. So I have my one passkey device. Now I want to go register another passkey device on another system I have. You can set all those up. You can revoke them, all that good stuff. So it gets pretty advanced. It's pretty nice. I'm looking forward to using that functionality myself.
Yeah. Anything where you have the additional levels of security like that, you can potentially, protect your passkeys with biometrics or some other second factor. And then again, like you said, you can manage them. So you have a second one. It's always good, especially if you've got a lot of eggs in one basket with a 2FA secured by biometrics. You want to have your recovery codes. And I know I have a second device. When I'm traveling, I have a second device that stays at home with me with my 2FA codes. If my, traveling device gets lost, stolen, broken, etc., I don't have to run through the recovery codes. When I get back home, I've got my 2FA code sitting here on a device that never leaves my house.
Yeah, it's pretty handy.
Good to do
so
that.
Again, we got a lot of things kind of added on this initial go around, and we're excited to put it in your hands soon. So stay tuned. We're looking forward to getting feedback from folks who are early adopters and testers. Again, this is all brand new functionality and code, which means we expect through the beta process, we'll be fixing a handful of things. So keep those bug reports coming. Let us know as you find any issues. We're going to be happy to get them addressed and get it all in nice shape for the eventual .0 release in April.
Well, that just about puts a bow on the Christmas gift for that new feature that we've unveiled here today, Chris, the TrueNAS web-based file sharing. Thank you very much for that video demonstration, and thank you everybody for staying tuned to T3 for this whole year of 2025. Chris and I are going to take some time off for the holidays, but we'll be looking forward to seeing you again in the new year. So make sure that you do those usual YouTube things for us. Give this video a like, give us a subscribe if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and drop your comments down below or in our forums at forums.truenas.com. Send us an email at t3@truenas.com. And Chris and I will see you again next year.